Welcome back to part 2 of a loungewear set from the year 1990. Part 1, I did the shorts in. This part I'm going to do the camisole in. I'm really excited if you're coming back. If you're new, that's crazy, even better. Please give me some interaction. It helps me with the algorithm. So like, comment, and subscribe if you'd like. This one I definitely messed up more on. I'm a lot less comfortable with shirts because this is the first shirt I've ever made. So take that in mind. Once again, this is not a tutorial as such. You could sort of follow it, but I don't know if I'm exactly a good source of information quite yet. So take everything I say with a grain of salt, and I will be messing up a lot. So if you guys are ready, I'm going to go ahead and start. So the first part of sewing this camisole together is going to be adding the darts at the top so that your chest can fit in it. For me, the first part was sewing the two sides of the shirt piece together because I was supposed to cut on the fold, but I did not. So I had to go take some time to yell and then come back and sew it together and work from there. To sew the darts, you're going to mark out a little triangle that's indicated on the pattern, and then you fold it together and you're going to baste along the line that it wants you to sew. That way it kind of creates a little mountain in the fabric and it'll allow your body to fit in it better. After I baste these marked lines out, I'm going to go sew it on the machine, and then I'm going to check how it fits on my chest. I don't think I sewed it properly because it was a little bit too small, but I was already in deep and I just went straight forward from there. What you could do too is if you have enough fabric and it'll fit you on the ribs, you can make a slightly bigger dart that will kind of create a larger space in your chest for you to fit. Now I'm not going to be cutting these darts. I'm actually going to be pressing them towards the center so that I can secure them down later with other pieces. Now at the sewing machine, I'm just going to use a straight stitch all the way down. Make sure I'm going back over myself at the beginning and the end to keep the stitch secure, or the stitches secure. You can check kind of with the tension if you need to add another one. Now I am ironing each of the shoulder straps folded in half. I find it easier that if I'm using a piece that's folded in half, just to iron it. I won't be doing anything radical with these pieces, just basting them. But it is a lot easier to work with when I just have a piece that will stay where I want it rather than like popping up all the time like if I was using an unironed piece. I'm using a cotton setting with steam if you were interested. Alright, now I am basting just a straight line all the way down the shoulder strap. I'm trying to give myself a tiny seam allowance because I'm going to have to turn these inside out later, and it's going to suck and be terrible, and I'm trying to make it as easy on myself as possible, but I still had a really rough time with it, as you will see in a little bit. Once again, I'm basting just because it's easier for me. I end up sticking myself with pins like a million times, and I don't have as easy a time moving around my pieces while I'm sewing. So I just like basting. It takes a little bit longer, like I said before, but I don't really care. I'm stuck at home all the time anyways, so I don't really have a lot of things to do, and I like to keep my hands busy. Alright, almost finished with this. When I'm sewing, I like to use a piece of thread that's like 2 times the length of my forearm. That way it's not too long and like difficult to manage. Alright, so I sewed these pieces, didn't get that footage, can't remember why. But now it's time for me to turn these inside out, which is going to be terrible. I'm cutting off all of the excess like seam that I can, or like leftover, whatever you would call that. But even so, this is like a really small tube, so it's not going to be easy to turn inside out like a larger cylinder would. I started by just trying to like turn it inside out with my fingers, but that took forever and it didn't feel like I was getting anywhere, and like it was so stressful. This footage is really sped up. This took like at least 5 minutes to just get this little portion done. It was really a mess. So, like, while I'm doing this, I'm trying my best to think of any other way that I could do this that would possibly be easier on me. Um, I tried a lot of different strategies. I started by using the scissors, but like rolling it over the scissors didn't work because it was kind of too tight on its own. There's probably a tool that you can use to make this easier, but I didn't look it up. I didn't try. I went then from trying popsicle sticks. One popsicle stick didn't feel like enough though, so I had two and then three. Three was too many. I think two I could actually sort of work with because I put one on either side and kind of like rolled the strap down it. Like, I feel like it shouldn't be this hard. Like, there should be a tool that would help you with this, but I spent like 20 minutes rolling these two straps inside out. Like, very time inefficient. After finally conquering these shoulder straps, I'm just going to press them flat again because my next step is actually sewing them onto the camisole front. I'm going to sew these up at the top. I left a little room between like the very top of the fabric and the strap, but I kind of wish that I didn't. I'm basting it just like half an inch down, and then the instructions said to fold towards center, so I folded towards center. What am I even doing here? I cannot remember. Oh, I'm trying to edge the top of the shirt. I don't own a serger, and even if I did, I don't know how to use a serger. So I tried just to stitch the edge of the fabric. It did not work. It looked really ugly. It didn't stick. It did not protect the raw edge whatsoever. So I just decided not to, and I think I ended up pressing it under itself, and then I tried to sew it directly onto the camisole, but like the raw edge was still there. I think I'm just basting it right to the top right now. This piece was absolutely the worst to work with. I didn't understand the directions in the sewing pattern at all. And like, I'm sure it would be way easier with a serger, but like, I still don't understand shapes that well. I was terrible in geometry. It really gets me confused. So if you see like a lot of footage of me messing with the pattern, it's because I'm literally trying to figure out which way is the correct way for the shape to go so that it will fit together. And unfortunately, that's not my strong suit. I think during this part, I actually just gave up and decided to work on a different part of the pattern. So, yeah, we'll come back to that. To try to help me repair my ego a little bit, I switched over to doing the top part of the back piece of the cami. I'm using just a strip of fabric. I fold it over on both sides towards the inside. They said to use, oh gosh, what do they call it? That tape that you sew onto the end of stuff. I'll probably put in a card. That is the word, but I cannot remember it to save my life. I'm only sewing one side of the strip of fabric at the top though, because I'm going to run elastic through the other side and then end up sewing that by hand onto the piece. So I'm just basting on one side with the fabric strip. This part was also kind of fun. I like the ironing parts. I always forget to record them, which I will try to do in the future. But like, I find ironing really relaxing. Pinning is the absolute worst part. So I'm glad I got that done before I even got the shorts done. I probably should have pressed down that seam in the center, but I didn't. So that made it a little more difficult for me. After I finish basting this, I'm just going to sew it. I think you can use like a zigzag type stitch. Still don't remember if that's what it's called. I think I did a couple seams on here because I messed up. I'm pretty sure my problem is thread tension, but Lord help me if I know how to do that. Maybe I'll actually like look up a video to try to learn things instead of just winging it completely and utterly. Like, I'm sure people know the answer to these questions I have. Feel free to leave me a comment if you guys know how to fix all of the problems I'm sure I have, even the ones I don't notice. I'm sure I'm making a lot of mistakes here. I'm still pretty new to this. I am nowhere near a professional. Alright, so I had another go at the top of the shirt. I decided to just iron out the bottom very, like, thinly. If I was to go back and do it again, I would create a bigger hem because I didn't get all of the hem under the thread when I was sewing it, so there's like a little portion that's not sewn completely on. But right now I'm just basting that on. I'm gonna sew it on afterwards. Once again, this piece gave me a lot of trouble, guys. I think I like put 4 or 5 seams in it and I ripped out a couple because I just couldn't get it to like lay flat and look the way I wanted. And also I was very confused by the directions. So I mostly just ironed down another hem on the top. I didn't sew over the strap like entirely, but I did sew over the part that I had already stitched onto the fabric. This part wasn't too bad actually. I was lazy and I didn't baste this particular portion. I should have. It would have made it a little bit easier for me. It would have given me like a cleaner result, but I didn't. So there's a few parts where it kind of like lifted up and I sewed it a little bit like off center. These kind of pieces are really fun to sew on the machine because like I'm moving it while I'm working with it. It really makes me feel like I'm sewing something, you know? It gets me connected with the roots of like my seamstress past lives. I'm sure they're very disappointed in my technique, honestly. But I'm almost done with this one. First seam of this particular area of many. Alright, now's the part when the shirt actually starts coming together. I'm basting both of the sides and I'm going to just do a straight seam all the way up. Once again, I probably should have taken some time to press all of my seams, but I didn't. Just like the shorts, there's a little slit at about an inch up from the bottom. So I'm not going to be sewing all the way down, like through the curve of the fabric. I'm going to be leaving that alone so that I can hem it later on. I'm trying to go slow with this one. Take it easy. I always rush through projects. In the next one I'm doing, you'll see a lot of problems caused by me rushing through projects. So I still have a little bit to go. Practice makes perfect, I suppose. Alright, there was a lot of failures of me sewing that very last top part, but I was kind of embarrassed at this point and I didn't sew it, and I didn't know how many times I would have to redo it. Around 3 was the answer. So I didn't record that part, and here is me doing the last part of the camisole, which is sewing the elastic into the back piece. So that had to be done by hand because if I stretched out the elastic all the way to the end, it would scrunch up the fabric and make it impossible to sew. But I didn't really mind hand sewing it because I kind of like it every once in a while. It's really relaxing. You can really like get in touch with where your hands are and the feel of the fabric. And this fabric I like a lot because it's like seersucker, a top tier fabric. All my seersucker fans out there understand. But that took a little bit. I sped it up so it's a little bit easier to watch, but it still took a while. I can't imagine how long garments must have taken to sew, like when you had to do every single piece by hand. It makes a lot of sense why one of the first machines that was invented was a sewing machine, because if I had machinery just coming out, I would definitely want to get rid of this particular task as soon as possible. I can't imagine how bad carpal tunnel was, because mine's terrible, and I have like fancy wrist braces. I really feel for like old-timey people. But that's it for this particular garment. As you could see, I had a lot more problems with that one than I did the shorts. Hopefully, as I continue to make things, I will be able to take more time on projects and, I don't know, do it correctly the first time. That would be pretty great. In my next video, I'm making a shirt with sleeves, which I have never done before, and also they're gathered sleeves, which is going to be very stressful. But it's a really pretty fabric, and I'm really excited to work with it. And I hope you all can tune in for the next video and see how that turns out. Thank you all for watching. I really enjoy making these, so I really appreciate anyone who watches. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe if you'd like. Please be nice. I take criticism okay, but I also have a very thin skin. I am